Live on DSTV channel 421, GoTV channel 125, and MyJoyOnline.com, as well as socials. This is Joy News Prime with me, Samuel Kojo Brace. Our lead story is this bulletin. Madina MP Francis Sosu's efforts to repeal the death penalty faces fierce resistance from among his own caucus as former Majority Leader Cletus Avoka leads the park in opposing the reform. We have details as Parliament's Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee recommend the amendment of the law. Also, majority MPs accuse NDC MPs of sabotaging Parliament as the House is forced to yet again adjourn sitting prematurely due to the boycott of the NDC caucus. But why is it so? Does the majority not have the numbers to continue doing business on their own? We get some answers for you. And Asen North MP James Jachikwesen confident his criminal trial will end in his favor despite being accused of deliberately delaying the case by the Attorney General. A former Majority Leader Cletus Avoka is leading the fierce opposition to efforts to repeal the death penalty. Under Ghanaian law, the offense of murder carries the death penalty, but since 1992, no convicted murderer has been killed. Cletus Avoka says the argument in support of the reform is porous. We'll hear from him shortly. First, though, listen to sponsor of the private members' bill seeking to amend the law, MP for Madina Francis Xavier Sosu, on why this change is necessary.
Execution in Ghana happened on the 17th of July, 1993, where 12 men were killed by firing squad. Mr. Speaker, the current position of Ghana is that we are abolitionists de facto, or abolitionists in practice. Mr. Speaker, this is so because since 1993 to date, Ghana has not signed a death warrant to execute anyone. Mr. Speaker, in these engagements, we have had several consensus. For example, a political consensus. A political consensus because the then administration of the NDC began this process, and as soon as this bill was laid in Parliament, the current government, led by His Excellency Nana Dankwa Akufo-Addo, also has openly endorsed the position of the bill. And this year, the President voted at the UN in favor of the resolution to end the use of death penalty. All the consensus that we have built over the years supports the fact that it is time for Ghana to amend its laws so that it can align with our practices.
His bill has received support from Parliament's Constitutional and Legal Affairs Committee, which has recommended the passage of the bill. Bernard Ahiafo is ranking member on the committee.
Life lost can never be regained. And there is a judicial principle of it's better you leave 99% guilty person free than to convict one innocent person. Assuming the death penalty is carried out, it means the person is going to be executed to death by either hanging or firing squad. Committee is recommending to the House to adopt its report and pass the death penalty bill into law. Death penalty should be replaced with life imprisonment. The responsibility now rests on Parliament to take the necessary actions. After extensive consultation, the committee is of the view that continuous retention of the death penalty in the criminal statute makes a mockery of justice, and the mere fact that for almost 3 decades, presidents of the Republic have found it unnecessary to sign execution warrants is an indication that Ghana does not need the law.
Now, Parliamentary Affairs Correspondent Kweku Asante joins us via Zoom with the details. Kweku, now tell us about this major opposition to the change.
Right, Brace, before I go on there, Where do you stand on this? Do you think that the death penalty must be abolished, or you think it must stay on Ghana's statute books?
Yeah, I think it must be abolished. Once we've not been able to execute any since 1992, obviously, then it means that we don't support it, so it has to go.
Right. So there are two MPs who do not agree with you, who have a very strong opposition to this bill. First, listen to Cletus Avoka, former majority leader. He led the opposition on the floor. We also heard from Habib Idris, who a deputy majority whip. They say that this bill must still stay and serve as a deterrent.
Advance this evening in favor of the motion are very spurious and have no merit at all. The arguments in favor of the motion are unmeritorious, very, very unmeritorious. Besides that, Mr. Speaker, it's a very lopsided argument that they have advanced this evening. They have not addressed the two sides of the coin. Mr. Speaker, this issue, the first point that they canvass is the point of uncertainty, judicial uncertainty. What is perfect on this earth that we think that the judiciary should have been perfect? What is perfect? 2 a.m., an intruder comes into my house. He climbs a ladder. He goes to look for a ladder, then comes into my house. Climbs up, breaks open my door and window, then kills me. Or if before then, he would have raped my wife, my partner lying with me. While I'm looking at it, he's raping my wife. Then, as if that is not enough, he takes my life and he kills me. Then this man has human rights. He has a human right. I have no human right. He should come and take my life within 30 minutes. He has truncated me to the next world. I have no rights. And he has a right to live. What right? What right, Mr. Speaker? Please.
Honorable member. Definitely we need to leave this so that it will be a deterrent to others. Speaker, both Muslims and Christians, we all believe in the eye for an eye. But in certain instances where you will see that, or you are very much aware that if I kill somebody, I will still be alive. People end up ending people's lives or shortening people's life with the excuse that if I end your life, I wouldn't be killed. I think that for the fact that no president or for a while we have not been able to execute anybody, we should still leave this in our books. We should leave it because it will serve as a deterrent to others. We should leave it because society has responsibility to look, or an obligation to look after the welfare of its citizens. So it should not be a case that because one or two misfortunes might happen, it should always be the case that if you kill somebody or end somebody's life, they also have families and their lives also matters. You should not be killed, or you should allow to go into prison for life.
Well, Koku, so we've had those who are against this. Are there voices in support?
Right, there are a number of voices in support, but one that stood out is Dr. Dominic Ayine, a former Deputy Attorney General. He had a rather very personal story to tell. His brother, his elder brother, has actually been on death row before and says that the experience at the time was harrowing. He does not believe anyone must go through that, and so he wants the bill to go through so that the death punishment can be repealed.
Interesting.
Been brought in a timeless manner for us to be able to do what has been, in practice, the policy position of the country. And Mr. Speaker, the proponent of the bill has also made it clear about the fact that due to human fallibility, sometimes innocent people may be sentenced to death. And as the honorable member for Akachi, I support the move made by this young man who has been very activist when it comes to this position. In fact, as Deputy Attorney General, I supported the position of the Constitutional Review Commission. So, Mr. Speaker, with what is on the floor, I wholeheartedly support it. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
So, Kwegu, when is a decision expected on this one?
So we expected a decision today, but as you may be aware, because the minority boycott proceedings, they were not much of some of the key business that they wanted to do. So we expect that as soon as Tuesday, a vote will happen on the second reading of this bill. It will move to consideration stage, and then finally third reading. The Speaker of Parliament is giving indication that he supports this. He wants to see this gotten through, and so we expect that by the end of this meeting, which is 3rd August latest, when Parliament is expected to go on break, this bill would have been passed.
All right, let's still stay in Parliament because Parliament has been forced once more to adjourn sittings without considering crucial business on the order paper, including key government business. This is the 3rd time this is happening in Parliament. The forced adjournments have been due to the minority's boycott of the House to attend court in solidarity with their colleague, Assin North MP James Jache-Kwesen, who's facing a criminal trial. Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Kweku Asante is with me again with some details. Kweku, so the minority MPs did not come to the floor. How many majority MPs, though, were on the floor at the time of the adjournment?
There were only about 15 of them, no more than 20 NPP MPs who were on the floor today to do government business. Of course, that meant that business would suffer because normally there are more minority MPs on the floor than there are majority MPs on the floor usually in this Parliament. And so once all 137 of them decided that they were not coming to Parliament today, and in the last 3 times that they've always done, it meant that government business was going to suffer. And so at the time the Speaker of Parliament, and in today's case, the second Deputy Speaker, walked in, there were just about 15 NPP MPs scattered within Parliament, and that did not do so much for Parliament business. Let me state that government side should be able to do business ordinarily, given the numbers that we have in the House. As per the standing orders, you need 92 MPs to be able to proceed and discuss anything, do ordinary business. But if you want to pass a bill, if you want to pass something major, if you want to go to a vote, then you need at least 138. All these numbers are numbers that the majority side have and should be able to go ahead and do business. But because they themselves were not there, once the minority boycotted this, then it meant that they were not going to be able to do business. So we've heard from one of the majority MPs, Professor Kingsley Nyako, who says that the NDC are trying to sabotage Parliament, and he believes the majority side should come to the floor in their numbers every time so that they can do key government business. Let's listen to him.
I vehemently, respectfully disagree with him on the adjournment of the House, because if we did that, it is going to give our friends on the other side the catalyst, the oxygen to breathe, and they will hide under that to perpetuate their own decided action that, in my respective opinion, does not inure to the benefits of their constituents. Our colleagues are supposed to be here to pursue the agenda and the interests of their constituents. Nobody bars them or prevents them from solidarizing with their colleagues. But I think that in this instance, a delegation could do. Our Speaker, I don't even believe that all of them are the courts. As we speak, some might be in their offices. This is a complete sabotage of the House. A delegation can be sent to be with their colleagues over there. They are just trying to disrupt the business of the House and of the government. And this is not acceptable. So I agree with him on the score that we can vary the order of business for the day, but we should continue to do business.
So, Kweku, have you been able to speak to some other MPP MPs on the persistent adjournment and why they are not able to do business on their own?
So a lot of NPP MPs are really tight-lipped about the situation. They are reluctant on going to the record. Of course, they will give you a lot of information and ask you to go and speak to the leadership for some answers. This particular meeting, the attendance in Parliament has really suffered. And on a number of occasions, NDC MPs in particular have had to raise issues of quorum. Sometimes the House has been forced to adjourn, even when all of them are there. It is because there's not been any key government business that has come in so far. The taxes have not come. There's, for instance, no issue about the ECCI. It has not come yet. So because of the lack of a very big business that will force both sides to come in and witness the business, the House are struggling in terms of attendance. The last time there were so many MPs on the floor was actually when Jati Kwesi was sworn in, because almost all NDC MPs came. Even at the time, there were very few NPP MPs on the floor. So attendance has really suffered. The NPP MPs, some of them who have been speaking to me in confidence and off the record, say that they want their leadership to rally everyone to come around so that they can do business without the minority. Just like you heard the Professor Kingsley Nyako say, they believe that the NDC minority are trying to sabotage government business on the floor. And so if they don't get these NDP MPs to come to the floor to do business, most of the key business will not be done, and Parliament will go on recess, will have to come, and these will not be done. The MPs are also thoughtful about this because as Parliament nears going on break, once you don't deal with this business, it will mean that you have to sit late into the hours. Grace, you know that normally when Parliament is about to go on break, they sit sometimes to 4 o'clock a.m. the next day and go and come back at 8 a.m. to come and continue. So a lot of these MPs, very old people, a lot of people having comorbidities among other things, you don't want a situation where they push you in the last hours for extended sittings, sitting so late into the night. We know what happened to the Kumewu MP. He was on the floor one of the evenings, late into the night. The next morning, unfortunately for him, he lost his life. So this is something that is so big, dear to the hearts of NPP MPs, and they want their leadership to rally their members to come to the floor. As I speak to you, Brace, the majority leader is outside the country on official trip. His deputy, just Federal Markin, is also out. The chief whip is also not around. So there's a lot of things that the majority side would have to consider if they can get President Akufo-Addo's government business through Parliament.
Okay, grateful to you. Kweku Asante is our man in Parliament. Let's take you to the courts now, because as a North MP, James Jati Kwesi is confident his criminal trial against him will terminate in his favor. This expression of optimism comes in the wake of the Attorney General accusing him of deploying legal processes to delay the case. The AG on Friday urged the court to proceed with the case despite the pending applications at the Court of Appeal and the Supreme Court. Legal Affairs correspondent Joseph Akable reports.
The Asin North MPs demand additional documents from state prosecutors to fully understand the case against him, as well as asking that his day-to-day trial be reviewed. Attorney General Godfred Yeboah-Dame is, however, accusing the legislature of engaging in a plot to prevent the court from hearing the case. Lead counsel Chachuchi Kata on Friday informed the court of the fresh legal processes. Abraham Amaliba is NDC's Director of Legal.
Because the rules are that you must fully disclose. But in this case, the Attorney General did some half disclosures, not full disclosure, which meant the Attorney General had something to hide. It is for this reason that lawyers for Jati Kwesi indicated to the court that because disclosures were not fully made in accordance with Republic versus Bafo-Boni's case, there's a need to stay proceedings.
What does Mr. Kwesi make of that?
It is mind-boggling that the Attorney General should be speaking that way. This same Attorney General, in a different matter, ex-party Kenya Japan, indicated to the court, and that was at the Supreme Court, that because disclosures were not fully made, clearly it was wrong for the court law to proceed. And in that case, Justice Yoni Kolendi actually said that the refusal of the court to stay but to proceed is a clear indication of bias against the accused person. So he cannot approbate and reprobate it. That is not the work of an Attorney General.
The AG's office disagrees. Alfred Chanyeboa is Deputy Attorney General.
There's an attempt to delay proceedings through the legal process, which will say fine, it's within their right to use the legal process to fight their cause. But that doesn't mean that when they file such applications, the court must wait for them for the application to move at the appellate court or at the Supreme Court. So we are concerned about that. But we are ready. If I told you last week, we come to court to speak law. This morning, we are speaking law in court. Tuesday, we know what the judge will say, whether the judge will agree with us or disagree with us.
James Jati Kwesi is meanwhile confident the case will eventually terminate in his favor.
I just want to take a moment here to thank all of you coming out of your busy schedules, devoting your time to support me. It means a lot to me, and it means a lot to the party and this. and also to all Ghanaians. This is a fight for justice and democracy. Because today it may be happening to Quayson, another day it will be happening to someone. And we want to stop these things in their tracks. A true democracy should have a transparent system, a fair justice trial, and no kangaroo courts. So I'm very hopeful. I believe in the rule of law, and I'm very hopeful that this matter will come to a very favorable conclusion.
The court will decide on July 18 whether to put the trial on hold.
Now, members of parliament are committing to greater funding to aid the fight of tuberculosis in Ghana. Despite affecting millions worldwide, the funding in Ghana is paltry. The Stop TB Partnership revitalized the TB caucus in parliament to push the agenda. Parliamentary Affairs correspondent Kweku Asante reports.
There is a major advocacy by the Stop TB Partnership to put tuberculosis and its adverse impact on citizens' health and the country on the national agenda. The organization is seeking to revitalize the TB caucus of Parliament to push the agenda. At a meeting with the parliamentary group, it secured assurances of MPs to deepen the advocacy in the national interest. Dr. Ayew Afriyie is chairman of the Health Committee of Parliament.
We expect by the next 6 months or in a year to have a lot of members on the platform. Our ability to be very active also depends upon you, Dave. We need to work together, set agenda, get statements on the floor, do debates, and then where money is, we can agree to set another agenda there. From our national budget to anywhere, you have tacit and explicit understanding of all of us to see to as to make this sitting impactful in the lives of the people.
Tuberculosis remains a pressing global health concern affecting millions of people around the world. National Board Chairman of the Stop TB Partnership, David Kwesi wants the funding gap addressed urgently.
TB funding gap is so huge, and when Doc said that HIV is 5 times or 4 times, you will think that he has $100 million and somebody has 500. He's actually having less than $20 billion, and somebody is having 120 million. And so if HIV is, TB is around $18 million for a 3-year program, and HIV is 120, and malaria is, malaria is 120, and HIV is 90, almost $100 million. The TB gap is just so huge that we need all stakeholders to ensure that. I'm anticipating the day His Excellency himself, when we meet him, he will make an allocation, a commitment. So we have direct presidential commitment.
Director of Public Health at the Ghana Health Service, Dr. Franklin Esiedubekwe, wants Ghana to catch up with other countries in terms of funding.
Is the need to have domestic funding. I mean, if you look at India, it came in as like a prototype country. Their funding for TB is about 80%. It's like the central government is funding 80% of their cost. If you compare to Ghana, largely our funding is by a global fund. If you want to address TB as a public health problem, then we need to be able to convince ourselves to invest into the treatment.
In Ghana, the escalating number of TB cases poses a significant challenge to the country's healthcare system and its progress towards achieving the Sustainable Development Goal target of ending TB epidemic by 2030. Reporting for Joy News, Kweku Asante.
To other stories now, and hostel fees have surged across campuses, posing a considerable financial burden on students. A shared room which used to rent for a little over 3,000 cedis is now 5,750 cedis for 8 months. In some cases, students pay over 24,000 cedis for just 8 months. How is this development affecting students? President of the National Union of Ghana Students, Dennis Apialabi, joins us via Zoom with some insight. Dennis, first, your reaction to this development?
Well,
Thank you very much. I don't know if you can hear me loud and clear.
Yes, I can.
Yes, thank you for having me. And first of all, I think that the incidence of increasing fees astronomically is becoming one too many. And the National Union of Ghana students is gradually getting frustrated. It is really extremely frustrating to not just the union, but all our students across the country, that there is just penchant of overly lazy students in the country. And as a matter of fact, it is important that the government of Ghana, as soon as possible, take steps to ensure that there is some level of sanity that is brought into the system. I don't know if it is because our institutions do not find it worthy of respecting the Ghana Tertiary Education Commission, that is DTEC, but gradually it is becoming too many, especially for the hostels which are under the University Authority. Private hostels, conversation is a bit difficult to have because the incidence of demand and supply makes it a bit challenging. At the end of the day, our point for the National Union of Ghana students is that one, for hostels or accommodation facilities which fall under the purview of the government or the university, sanity must, as soon as practical or as soon as possible, be made to prevail. These are unacceptable, they are frustrating, and they cause great danger in our pursuit in building an educational foundation for all of us.
Okay.
For hostels which are not owned by the government, our universities must, as a matter of agency, sit down to find a way of engaging hostel managers. If that is not done, we'll get to the point where our students cannot even enroll because they cannot enroll if they don't have accommodation. Then three, we are requesting that the government, through the Minister of Work and Housing and the Minister of Education, sit down and as soon as possible develop a roadmap that improves our accommodation situation on our various campuses. If that is not done, we risk putting our students to the peril of societal or communal danger while they go to look for accommodation instead of a tertiary education.
Okay. Now,
earlier this year it came. Last year it came. Every year it comes. And we keep lamenting the issue and nothing is done about it. I believe it is a shared responsibility between the university and the government of the Republic.
But we know that for some of these hostels that are under the authority of the universities, you, the student leadership, do have a say because you represent the student on some of these boards. Is that not the case?
So currently it's becoming difficult to have student voices on some of these boards. It's becoming very, very difficult because the university shut it down and then they decide these issues without the input of students. Having said that, let it be on record that all university hostels which fall under the university authority subject to the fees and charges of the Republic. Hence, an increment that goes beyond 15% is against the law and it is illegal. So charging any hostel fee or any hostel or accommodation facility that belongs to the state beyond the increment of 15% is illegal. And as such, the government has a responsibility. The university also has a responsibility to be law-abiding. We can't continue to have academia make themselves laws and laws. It is terrible. And I have lamented that consistently. Today we have fees going above 15%. Tomorrow we have hostel fees going above 15%. It is getting to a point the students of this country will have no option than to react.
Okay.
That's
all
what
right.
we want to do.
Grateful to you for joining us here now. Dr. Clement Park is a member of the Education Committee of Parliament and MP for Bosa South constituency. Grateful to you for joining us. Now, at the committee level, are there plans in the works to regulate the activities of these hostels that target students?
Well, let me say good evening to you and to viewers, and to indicate that the committee has not received a petition from the student movement on this matter, and so the committee has not initiated any action thereof. But as somebody who makes matters pertaining to teaching and learning from the most basic level to the highest level, my concern, I have a few thoughts of my own. I have had cause to hear complaints from students over the past few years, and I sympathize with the students with regards to what I consider to be outrageous charges that they are being required to pay, just so that they can have a place to lay their heads, to be able to pursue, higher degrees, all with the intent of putting themselves in a good stead to serve their families and to serve the nation and to serve humanity. I believe this trend clearly ought to be checked. So I truly think that I would urge the student movement to very quickly petition Parliament, petition the Speaker, and copy the Committee on Education, so that Parliament would lead the effort and the dialogue for us to have a national conversation with regards to the provision of affordable accommodation for our students in tertiary institutions across the country. The current situation clearly makes it very difficult for students from less endowed backgrounds and students from rural areas in particular to be able to get space in or close to, tertiary institutions to reside so that they can study. This clearly has serious implications in terms of the attempt to try and increase the number of people that we want to train as is required in the modern world. So I think it is about time that we initiate a national conversation around this matter so that we can have some sanity, some uniformity as far as rent for hostels, be they private or public, are concerned. As far as I'm concerned, the government and the state, the people of Ghana must have a say.
Okay.
We cannot just leave the situation to its fate where public institutions and universities and all private hostel owners can decide to charge rent the way and manner that they want. We are not in a lawless country. We have rules, and we must rein them in. And we need a national conversation to bring some sanity to ensure that there is affordability.
Okay.
That is my position on this matter.
All right, Doc, I'm grateful to you for joining us here. This is still Johnny's Prime. We'll take a quick break. We will be back with more news. Stay with us. Welcome back from the break. Now, the Tema Regional Fire Service has begun investigations into circumstances leading to a fire outbreak at a fuel tanker yard near the Tema Tank Farm. 3 fuel tankers were burnt together with a saloon car. Timely intervention by the Tema Fire prevented an explosion. Joy News' Elvis Washington has more in the following report.
The 3 tankers with registration numbers unknown were all partially burnt. It took the fire service well over 3 hours to completely douse the fire. 2 out of the 3 tankers were empty, while the third had a full load of petrol. But the consignment was safeguarded by the fire service. According to the Public Relations Officer for Tema Regional Fire Command, Divisional Officer Grade 3, DO3 Ebenezer Yenzu, noted that the command is yet to ascertain the exact cause of fire.
Investigations currently is ongoing. You can see the officers are going around to try and ascertain what could be the possible cause of the fire. In the rightful time, when we are able to ascertain what brought about this fire, we'll be able to communicate to the general public what really transpired. We have 3 tankers that were involved in the fire. All are partially burnt, I must say, because the content in the other one, the one which is having the product, is salvaged, and it's a 54,000 liter vehicle. But we've been able to salvage the content of the vehicle. But around 3 o'clock, that is where, around 3:35, that is where we received the call. And quickly around 3:47, our men who had responded from the thermal-industrial area fire station, and they requested for assistance from the other stations that are nearby.
DO3 Ebenezer Yenzu took the opportunity to commend his men for acting swiftly and also advised the general public on the need to get extinguishers at their homes and workplaces at all times.
So when you look at this particular incident that has occurred, the fire service, the men, officers and men that responded to this exercise have really done well. They've done a yeoman's job, and they should be applauded for their efforts that they kept in to avert a possible explosion. And as an advice also to the general public, we advise them that they should always get some of these basic firefighting equipment in their homes, in their offices, in their workplaces, so that should the fire occur, they'll be able to use it to alleviate their plight. We also would want to say that you should get training on even how to use it, not necessarily getting it only, but knowing how to use the extinguisher, and it might come in handy when the time comes for you to use it.
For Joy News, my name is Elvis Washington, reporting from Tema. Now, the construction of a health facility initiated by the Assembly member for KO electoral area in the Kumasi metropolis has been abandoned for almost 5 years. The clinic situated at Krobo Odumase Market has been left for occupation by squatters as the community yearn for increased access to healthcare. There is more in the following report.
A former Assembly member of KO electoral area, Alexander Safoke, initiated the construction of a clinic and police station in 2018. He self-financed the project in fulfillment of a promise to residents while he was campaigning to go to the assembly. The KMA, acknowledging the importance of the projects, prioritized the police station and reimbursed the assemblyman to take over the project. However, the one-story building serving as a clinic has been left to rot after the assembly member lost his seat. Second-hand clothes sellers now use part of the structure for trading. But the traders are anxious to see the completion of the health facility to support their health needs.
The risks involved in our operations is high. The hospital could have given us first aid.
I don't think she anytime in case I serious.
The abandoned clinic also serves as an apartment for some, and other food vendors have turned the space as a abode to prepare their food. A corn miller also occupies part of the structure for business, and at the back of the structure are scattered cooking utensils. The squatters say the rooms get flooded anytime it rains. They fear the building would collapse with no intervention.
A hospital, yeah, die. This
is where we sleep, but it gets flooded anytime it rains. The building looks weak, and we fear for our lives.
The clinic, when completed, would serve thousands of traders who ply their trade at the enclave, as well as the residents. Some traders who spoke to Love News say completion of the facility will reduce the stress of access and healthcare at Menshia Government Hospital.
Dr. Mensah Hospital
There's no hospital at Dr. Mensah. The assembly member was a man of vision for such projects. They have commissioned the police station, but the hospital is left out.
The former assembly member is eager to see the facility completed. Though he has committed resources to the project, Alexander Safokese says the facility belongs to the people. He has appealed to the Member of Parliament for Menshia South, Dr. Matthew Pokuprempe, to help complete the facility.
We finished the ground floor, so it was left with the first floor. And we floored the building, we plastered the ground floor, we did terrazzo, and we did all the windows. So basically the ground floor was done. It was finished. That they could have used it if they wanted to use it. But it was left with the wards, that is female and male wards. In terms of people delivering the baby or minor surgeries, they could have done it there. And it happens to be my own money, you know, my own funding, and MPs funding too. So I urge the MP to come to my aid, or to the people's aid. It's not mine. It belongs to the people, okay? It belongs to the KO, the people of KO, and for that matter, Menchia South, because everybody else can use it, and people coming to Menchia too. But I'm sure the MP would take care of it. I mean, I have confidence in him, and I know he's a good man. I'm sure he will come to the aid of the people. I'm very sure the MP will do it.
For Joy News, Nana Boachidankwayadum, Kumasi.
Now, public relations officers have been advised to take advantage of the growing social media craze to enhance their work. Speaking to Joy News on the sidelines of this year's annual thought leadership discussion organized by Global Media Alliance under the theme Harnessing the Power of Public Relations, Director of the Ministry of Information, Charlotte Morgan Asiedu, stressed how the new media has the potential to control narratives.
PR is not a tool for manipulation and deception. It depends on how you use a tool. I think that this is potentially a powerful tool to be able to help us to speak our narrative, to be able to get positive results. I think that it depends on how we use the new media. PR these days can go out and take the new media and use it for our positive results. So for me, I think that the new media rather is something that can impact and can help PR to make results and to make impact in society.
Now, Chief Director of Global Media Alliance, Emma Wenani, touched on the need to do away with the perception that public relations practitioners are only known for solving crises in institutions rather than attending to other important engagements such as reputation management and brand awareness.
PR is a lot of things, and maybe issues management, let me call it that, is part of PR. It's not the only thing, because we relate with stakeholders, the stakeholder engagement, there's reputation management, there's now issues management, there's a brand awareness, which is a lot of PR. But because negative news sells, I think a lot of PR people are only known when it comes to how are we able to solve a particular crisis, and that's when you appreciate the work of PR.